Business Angel Talk mit David Rhotert.
Today I have the honor to talk to you, Antoine. I was lucky to experience in one of your workshops about deep focus and flow working. So I guess that for many the subject is probably kind of unknown. So it would be cool if you could just give a short first impulse. What exactly is deep focus and flow working?
Sure. So flow working is a methodology and a movement to get our work done in a deeper state of focus and ultimately in a flow state. So flow state has been called our optimal mental state of happiness and performance. So we can imagine, for instance, being at our computer and being so immersed with what we do that we forget about everything else. We lose the sense of time. We become more creative and we tend to produce our best work. Now, this is typically a flow state. And so the method here is to train the mind to enter these flow states more often, more systematically. We've all experienced an experience like that, but very often it happens quite rarely, maybe once a month, maybe once a week if we're lucky. However, when we get into a flow state, and what research shows is that we get to be 3 to 7 times more productive. We're 2 to 6 times more creative. And we can learn information about 5 times faster. So in a way, it's a bit of a super skill. And so really, flow working is a movement to transform the way that we focus at work. And there's the 3 key purposes to this. 1, it's to train the mind for flow states. Secondly, it's so that we can work on the stuff that has more impact, that is our most important work, as opposed to doing, some small task and getting distracted on that which is not really creating value either for ourselves or for the company. And thirdly, it's about practicing habits of working healthy. So typically in those flow working sessions where we're a group of people working on our own task, we're going to take some breaks and do some stretching, do some movement, do some meditation, do things that take care of our body, of our mind, and help us have a healthy work day. And what we find often is that people after a working session, they have more energy than when they started. They finish their workday feeling peaceful as opposed to being stressed. So these are the core ingredient and intention of the movement.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really great that after a real hard work day, you feel more energized than before and even have some time for doing some meditation or breaks. Yeah, I think probably everybody is looking for something like that. When you talk about it, I mean, I feel a lot of passion when you talk about it. You're smiling. I can feel and see the energy. How did you come up with the topic, and why did you stick to it?
So maybe a bit of background. I grew up in France. I lived in Australia. I traveled to a bunch of countries, and then I arrived in Berlin about 7 years ago, and I asked myself the question: okay, what do I do now? And I wanted to answer the question, how to live a happy life. I figured if we're on this planet, we gotta have a pretty solid answer to that question. And I started giving a few talks on the topic on how we can hack the brain for happiness. And I also set out to write a book. Now, I wasn't productive at all. Maybe 10 months into the game, I realized I've barely written anything on this book. And so I started asking myself the question, how can I be systematically productive? And, like most of us, I started reading books, trying different tools and techniques, but I found that even though these things help, they really didn't go to the core of what makes us human beings productive. And about 5 years ago, I came across some amazing meditation teachings. And I started making the connection between working in this deep focus way and deeper levels of awareness, in particular flow states, for instance. So that's basically what's been driving me, is to create a different ways of working. And really for me, it's about making the world a better place. That's the way that I try to bring something of value, because I dream of a world where instead of most people working in a way that makes us feel tired or that creates stress and affects our health, we find a different way of working. And if we did that, I feel the world would be a bit of a better place as a whole. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. If I understand correctly, you said that you were looking for your perfect life, yeah, how to lead your happiest life. And while searching that, you discovered that you want to write a book about it, and then discovered that, yeah, you got stuck in the process and didn't get the thing done, and then focused on, yeah, how to focus, how to get things done. So the connection, and that is what I'm pointing at now, is leading a happy life, and therefore being able to really focus. So because for me, it's in the beginning a bit of a surprise when I hear something about deep focus. It's more like, okay, you can work better, faster, you can get more out of people, yeah, and they are more productive. But if I understand you correctly, it's also being more happy, maybe also seeing more the purpose in what you do.
Absolutely. I think you're pointing out here to a common belief that is out there, that in order to be productive, we need to push ourselves. We need to put pressure on ourselves. And I make a distinction between productivity by pressure and productivity by pleasure. So productivity by pressure is typically when there's a deadline, or a client, or the manager pushing for a result, or even ourselves. We have high expectations. And we can get focused that way, but we exhaust ourselves. And then productivity by pleasure is when we do something that we're naturally interested in, that we enjoy. You know, an example of that would be composing music or writing a poem, that's producing something. Maybe a further example of that would be a teenager playing video games for 3 or 4 hours, so focused, right? So we can't really call that productivity as such, but the brain is processing information and it's not letting itself be distracted. So there's this concept in society that productivity requires pressure, but the fact is, as human beings, we perform better. We're in a state of openness and happiness, and we feel a sense of interest, and even better when we feel a sense of purpose about what we do. So when you ask me the question, why is it that I keep doing what I do, is because I feel a sense of purpose when I share these tools, when I create experiences with other human beings who get to experience what it's like to be in a state of high performance, and seeing the results of, hey, I've gotten this thing done that has been on my desk for the last 3 months, and finally it's over. Finally, I'm free. Finally, I can be proud of what I created. And, you know, some of the things that have touched me was when I've seen people in trainings have tears of happiness because they finally moved from the state of procrastination to a state of getting the stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was also part of one of your workshops. That's how we met, and I also felt it. I mean, yeah, it's very freeing if you really do something that you couldn't do for a long time, and it makes you feel good. And also doing this with others in this workshop is great. So would you say this deep focus and flow working ability is something everybody could learn?
Absolutely. So we all have, the structures of our brain are pretty much similar across all human beings. And so it's about training one particular part of the brain for this capacity to focus. And when we rewire that part of the brain, then the way we operate is we're naturally less distractible, and that impacts absolutely everything that we do, whether it's at work, whether it's, you know, doing the dishes or talking to another human beings. We have more energy. And so that, you know, we spoke about the quality of our life. I believe that living a focused life is far more fulfilling and meaningful than living the distracted life. And as you know, the world we live in right now has been growing in terms of distractions. There's a field, you know, of social media and the phone and all these things that are constantly pulling on, I'm going to call this the weak buttons in our brain. And it's just hard to not go and get distracted by these things. But the fact is, it tends to make us unhappy. We know also from science, and this is getting to be common knowledge now, that our brain is off track 47% of the time. That's how often our mind is wandering and thinking about stuff that's not connected to the present moment. And the science shows also that we're not happy when we're in that state. Even though, on the surface, we may be enjoying the drifting in thoughts and maybe finding a little new idea here and there. Overall, we're not happy because we're mind wandering, because we're not doing something that we're deeply engaged and immersed in.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm still astonished how you have the relation being happy and more focused, because it's stuck in my mind that for most of us, I think that the focus, the word focus always means something hard and heavy, and one should do it. It needs effort to do so. And you say, no, you can train it and you feel better, and it feels like a flow. So it's not heavy and hard anymore. It's a pleasure, as you said. So this is something which is really worth to try, because I also figured out that it can change a life, and not only in working surrounding. And during one of your workshops, I heard you say that you believe that the deep focus skill is one of the most important skills for you in the 21st century. Why do you see it this way?
Well, I think first we have to give credit to Cal Newport, who wrote about the nature of deep work and blocking digital distractions, for talking about it in the context of the 21st century. For me, concentration is not an ordinary skill. It's a skill that allows us to learn any other skill. And so in that sense, it's a meta skill, right? What we know also from science is that if we look at the models of high performance in human beings, they have one thing in common. It's this full attention, this high attentiveness. In other words, concentration. What we don't see in models of high performance in human beings is mindfulness. And even though we have right now a wave of mindfulness that's sweeping the world, and that's a great thing, we need that. What we need even more, I believe, is a culture of cultivating concentration, right? Concentration is also the root of creativity. For instance, one way of being creative is to have a walk in the park and just to let the mind wander. So that's what I called surface creativity. But getting into states of deep creativity where ideas come up, that requires deep focus. Focus is also a main factor for feeling energy in everyday life. For me personally, I know that if I meditate, I do concentration meditation before going to sleep, it's going to tend to shorten my nights, and I tend to wake up feeling more fresh and more clear in the mind, right? So meditation is one strategy for deepening concentration, and another one is practicing flow working, so working in a deeply concentrated state. But when we go back to concentration or meditation, there are three types of meditation roughly. One is concentration meditation. Another one is generative meditation, which means we generate states. For instance, loving kindness. For instance, a sense of trust, a sense of confidence in ourselves. And then the third kind of meditation, which is insight meditation or awareness meditation. And in my view, that's the most profound type of meditation that we can train the mind for. And this opens in particular those states of mind where we feel connected with everything, when we're more creative. I just spoke this morning with somebody who's gone on a meditation retreat and explained that suddenly he opened up a state of awareness where all of the problems he'd been having at this point, suddenly the solution appeared right in front of his eye in an instant like this. So this is highly unusual, and it's a fascinating moment, right? And these are characterized by a deeper level of awareness. Now, in order to open up those states, the key factor is to train concentration, right? Most of us cannot open those states and because our mind are not stable enough. So I believe that of all the skills we can learn, this is one that has some of the largest impact on the quality of our lives. And that's why I feel so strongly about concentration as a movement in the world.
Yeah, I mean, since I really felt it myself, I can follow you on this, and how for you personally? I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and I forgot about it. I really want to point out that I find it very, good to know that this is something everybody can learn, and also I have to say that you really have a clear concept. Because I can think, and if I think of myself, just to think, okay, I can learn it, but how? Yeah, how and where do I start? I think you are a really good starting point, since you have a lot of expertise and done hundreds and thousands of workshops. So yeah, I really recommend this to everybody who's listening. And yeah, I would maybe as a last question like to know, since you train and maybe still train deep focus, concentration, but you have an ability there, and does it give you more time for you than you used to have before? How did your life change, and what does a typical day for you look like now?
If I look at my life back a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, it was full of procrastination, full of worries or fears or uncertainty. And practicing flow working, practicing concentration meditation has, I would say, stabilized and opened my mind. And this is a continuous process. I'm still on this path. My days today are much lighter, right? I'm rarely tired. I used to get tired, in the middle of the afternoon suddenly, and I had to push through that. It hasn't really happened in the last few years. And I would say, I also have an ability now to sense better into what my body and my mind needs. And I can meditate. I can have work days that are more flexible. I also trust myself that I can get on the computer and get to do the work when I need to without having to fight through resistance or confusion. So it's a lot easier to get things done. It takes a lot less effort as well. And what this means also for me is that I tend to categorize my life in a very simple two categories. One is well-being, so doing things like meditation and sports and yoga, spending time with people and exploring and learning new things. So that's what sustains energy. And then the other category is doing that which is purposeful. And for me, I get most of my sense of purpose in sharing these tools, in giving flow working trainings or creating the movement and the community around it. And so that way, my life, I feel, is much more focused and streamlined. And it's easier for me to discard that which is not meaningful, to get caught less into all these millions of distractions out there.
Yeah, I think, to hear you talking about this again like this, I think everybody who heard this now feels it. It's really something one should try. And yeah, it's so much lying behind this. And as you said, it's a whole life experience. And I can just recommend it. Get in touch with Antoine. And yeah, it was a pleasure for having you and sharing this insights from you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, David. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you for your great questions.
Thank you.